Let's move over to the main track now and take a look at some graded stakes action Saturday at Belmont. This is the field of 10 signed on for the Grade 2 Suburban. $700,000 was the purse, and based on the tote, really, it was anybody's race. You had 6 horses between 3 to 1 and 8 to 1 in a 10-horse field. Wide open betting board, plenty of value to be had if you believed in certain horses. You had a horse that had been successful at Belmont Park in the past. The biggest victory to date for Diversify was last year in the Jockey Club Gold Cup, a Grade 1 at 10 furlongs. Well, guess what? This race maybe not as prestigious as the Jockey Club Gold Cup, but this was an even better performance than what he delivered last fall at Belmont. Here's the stretch run of this year's Suburban.
Diversify, the one to beat as they turn for home. He's got a 5-length lead here. Diversify coming into the final furlong. He's all by himself with 1/8 of a mile to go. And then it's War Story, Zanotti, the Lieutenant, Discreet Lover, and Taprit on the far outside. But Diversify has absolutely crushed his competition. Diversify in the Suburban. What a performance.
Diversify blows the doors off this field of pretty solid older horses. He wins this year's Suburban, the Grade 2 event, and pays $14. The runner-up, the Lieutenant, at odds of 34 to 1, and the third-place finisher, Discreet Lover, at odds of 41 to 1. If you played that trifecta for 50 cents, shade under $1,000. Fourth-place finisher was Opportunity, one of the choices in this spot at odds of 3 to 1. Let's take a look a little bit deeper at Diversify, who is now 9 of 14 lifetime, 11 times in the exacta, over $1.3 million in career earnings, owned by Lauren Evans and Ralph M. Evans, trained by Rick Violet, bred by Fred W. Hertrick III and John D. Fielding in New York. Ridden to victory by Irad Ortiz Jr., and you can see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He is by Bellamy Road out of a street crime mare named Rule 1. We get into the nuts and bolts as far as the times and figures are concerned. This was a very, very impressive and authoritative score for Diversify. A 110 Beyer speed figure and a 133 Timeform US rating. Some of you may have seen the 107 reported early on. That number got cranked up to a 110 for his effort on Saturday afternoon. The Lieutenant running second, a 101 Beyer and a 124 Timeform US rating. And the third place finisher, Discreet Lover, a 98 Beyer and a 121 Timeform US rating. Diversify, it's already been clear. Also, one other thing to make mention. Half, 3/4, and mile splits according to Timeform US, red color-coded, meaning they were fast fractions, which makes this effort from Diversify that much more impressive, especially when you consider how fast everyone else finished the final quarter mile as opposed to Diversify. You had a horse like Opportunity who came from dead last. He finished in 25:20. You had a horse like Discreet Lover who was coming from the back of the pack. He came home in 26:01. The Lieutenant was mid-pack throughout. Came home in 25:84, and your pace setter, Diversify, he finished in 25:84 as well. So this was just truly top to bottom, a smashing effort for this Rick Violet trainee. Now, Rick Violet has already made it clear the Whitney probably going to get passed. Going to be focused on the Woodward, run him there, give him plenty of time because this was a big, big effort and it took a lot out of him. Violet said afterward the next morning he was tired and wound up. He laid it all on the line yesterday. This was a major league effort, arguably one of the most impressive performances from an older horse we've seen in 2018, and it's about time. Now, the interesting thing about a horse like Diversify, 10 furlongs, he can get it. I'm still not convinced, and I understand I was just laying out those final quarters, which make this race that much more impressive. But it does lead me to wonder, he has had instances where against good horses, he has done this. He has blown fields away. He's done good things again. In last year's Jockey Club, he beat a horse like Pavel, and he finished ahead of a horse like Keen Ice. But then he's also shown up in spots and kind of bombed against better horses. We saw that at Churchill Downs last fall. So Diversify is going to be one of those talents. The good news for him, and I suppose it just is what it is about Saratoga, the Whitney is the race that all the older horses circle. It's almost like that is the main prize. And then the consolation prize is the Woodward. And again, just unfortunately the way that the calendar fits, the Woodward gets overlooked a little bit. Recent memory anyway, because everyone focuses on the Whitney. You'll get some of the horses that run in the Whitney to come back in the Woodward, and perhaps you get some fresh faces. But if you believe that to be the case, this may be a good thing for Diversify, but I'm not sure it will answer a heck of a lot for me going forward if I'm thinking the first Saturday in November. If he runs in the Breeders' Cup Classic, he's going to have other heat that he's going to have to deal with early on. And you saw him pop back to his left lead there toward the end of the run. makes me wonder, is he really built for 10 furlongs, or is he going to be much better suited at the 9 furlong distance? I personally think he's better a little bit shorter, and that's after seeing him blow the doors off this field by 6.5 lengths. But I don't need to, beat on this point that when you get to the Breeders' Cup Classic, you're going to have a horse who you may have heard of called Justify, who's probably going to be up there pushing the pace throughout. You probably have a horse like Accelerate, who's going to be forwardly placed throughout. He's going to have to do some other things, but make no mistake about it, this was arguably the most impressive performance we have seen in 2018 from an older horse. And if he can replicate this and continue to do this, yeah, you've got a legitimate threat for all the big races for the older horses. No question about it. It sounds like the Woodward is the next start for Diversify. As far as the Lieutenant is concerned, I don't view him as a top older horse. I know he has won a graded stakes race already, but he just doesn't seem like, to me, a horse that you're really truly looking at as far as a threat for a division like the Classic division, where you get horses in the Breeders' Cup Classic or the Jockey Club or any of those types. It is interesting to see, though, that the Lieutenant, he runs second at 1.25 miles at Belmont Park, earns a 101, and his little brother, all he did just a few weeks ago was win the Triple Crown at a Belmont Park. Obviously talking about Justify and Lieutenant. They are both half-siblings. Discreet Lover, I love him. He outruns his odds from time to time. I don't really think he is a top-level horse, but I'm not going to sit here and knock the connections or say don't go here and there. I will just always harken back to he runs his best when he is reasonably spotted, not thrown to the wolves. If they go to the Whitney, I think that's probably going to be a little bit too tough, but I like him. I've always been a fan of him. I think there was some ability. Opportunity, I don't think he ran poorly, but maybe this is just going to show that there is that now he's at that point in his career where there is a chasm between who he can run with and who he can't run with. And also it helps when he gets a little bit of distance. Maybe now he really is that distance specialist. I would imagine, if everything is good, a race like the Cougar, the second handicap, down at Del Mar at 1.5 miles would probably be more beneficial for a horse like this at this point in his career. Tapwrit, I don't think he ran great. I don't think he ran poorly. I thought it was just an even effort, and I've just come to expect this from Tapwrit. I think he is okay and just okay. Don't think he's truly a threat for any of those big races, but who knows? You got to wait and see what the fields look like when they come together. The last horse I will really talk about, last two horses. War Story, this was a poor effort from him, no question about it. Now, perhaps he was too close and he got cooked by that pace, but I don't think you're supposed to fold and finish last. I've made it clear. War Story is a really neat horse. Probably deserves more credit than he's gotten over the course of the years, but he's not a top-level Grade 1 caliber horse. He is better off when he is reasonably spotted. If you get him in certain instances, I don't know that he's truly a Whitney kind of horse. Maybe he can hit the board. But I think he's better off in some of those more middling races where, you know what, I don't know, I'm just throwing races out there. The Monmouth Cup, if they haven't already run that, the 2-turn race on dirt at Monmouth Park. I think that's a good race for a horse like War Story. I think some of those, you can find your spots with a horse like War Story. It reminds me a lot of Discreet Lover. You can pick your spots, but when they get thrown into the deep end, they're just not quite of that level. The real disappointment, and he was just terrible, and you have to hope that nothing's wrong with him, was Dr. Dorr. Now, Dr. Dorr was scheduled, or he was cross-entered in a race at Prairie Meadows over the weekend, and they chose to go to this spot. I thought that was going to be a positive move. He never looked comfortable at any point. It looked like he was in a decent spot sitting 3 or 4 lengths off of it, but when the real running started, Joe Talamo was asking him, and there was no response whatsoever. This was a terrible effort for a horse that had done some decent things in Southern California. To me, it's back to the drawing board. He either needs some time off, or I don't know what else, because he was just really, really poor in this spot. Never threatened whatsoever. Terrible effort from Dr. Dorr. I think Baffert's got to go back to the drawing board with this horse. But the main event and the main focus, I should say, was Diversify. He went out there and showed that on his best day, he can put up performances that are every bit as good, if not better, than anyone else in the country, male or female. He did so on Saturday afternoon in the Suburban. He gets the job done with a 110 Beyer speed figure and a 133 time form U.S. rating, one of the best performances from an older horse in 2018, and it sounds like we'll see him next in the Woodward at Saratoga.